Hey everyone, what's up? I was recently interviewed on the Afternoons with Hellen Farmer radio show in Dubai. And I have the recording of that interview for you here today on the podcast. We talked about getting started decluttering. We talked about decluttering in kids and family members. We talked about overwhelm. And she also asked me if there was ever a space that was just too much for me. You're going to hear all about it in today's episode of the podcast. You are listening to the Decluttering Club Podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Mueller, and it's my mission to equip women to declutter their homes, their time, and their lives so that they have energy for what matters most.
Sarah, I'm so glad you're with us because I really need your help. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Thank you so much for having me, Helen. This is such a treat.
I hope you didn't mind me introducing you as a mum of four, but I always feel like it's a really important part of understanding this whole person that, that we are. Mm-hmm. And we know kids often equal clutter. So I'm definitely going to be picking your brains on bedrooms and play spaces later. Before we get to some of those strategies and, of course, answering the questions that we've got on 4001. Sarah, how did you get into this? What's the origin story of your love of decluttering, dare I say?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to share that. So, I was kind of just doing the normal thing, right? Again, four little kids. They're all boys. We got a lot of stuff. And I kind of thought the answer to I want my house to be clean, the way to do that was to get organized, right? So I spent all my time just trying to clean up and to get organized and buy more bins, and maybe we should color code and on and on and on. And, that doesn't work. That's like a losing game. And so once I discovered that, I actually went on a visit to my sister who was a minimalist, and they didn't have anything extra. And I thought, oh my word, this is amazing. Their home wasn't empty and cold.
Oh, good.
But they had gone through, right? They had gone through and eliminated things they didn't need. So it was so refreshing. So I went home from that trip and I just started getting rid of stuff. And, encountered lots of pitfalls along the way, made lots of mistakes. But over time, I just refined my ideas into a system that we now use with our entire community.
You make it sound so simple, because I think a lot of people listening be like, well, I know what I need to do. So it's a bit like going to the gym to me. We have I have access to a gym. I have feasibly time to exercise. I know I should. So what's stopping me? And I think about the decluttering in the same way. There are a couple of cupboards in my home. I have the time to do it. Why can't I do it? So I wanted to ask you a little bit about the psychological side of it. And I'm not talking about, pathological hoarding that you'd make reality TV about, but I'm talking about, people listening today who are doing a little mental scan of their homes and going, oh yeah. Why do we hold on to possessions even when we might no longer want or need them, Sarah?
Yeah. Oh, so many reasons, right? I think, you started out by saying I'm a little nervous about this because, right? So, and I think, the thing that I always tell people is you don't have to let go of anything. I am the first to tell you, right? Because I think every time people think, oh, decluttering, they think, oh, I'm doing it wrong. I should, and there's all this guilt and this shame, and we can just let all of that go. Right. Because as soon as I tell you have to get rid of something, you're going to hold on even tighter, which is not productive.
So when we look at kind of the background of it, then what are some of the common triggers and habits that can contribute, Sarah? What have you seen with clients in the past?
So I think it's just easier, right? The default is to not let it go. The default is just let it be, let it sit there. So it's easier. And, there's all kinds of other things that are just that much more enjoyable. Nobody wants to go through that cupboard. Right?
We'd rather watch Bridgerton.
That's what I was doing last night. Yes, exactly. We'd rather watch Bridgerton. So it's just, and then it kind of compounds. Right. And we think, oh, all of our memories are tied up in these things, right? I can't let this, this coffee mug go because it reminds me of that trip that I took, 10 years ago. And I can't imagine being without it. Mm-hmm. We forget that the memory is not in the coffee cup. The memory is in our heads. right? And so we can have that memory whenever we want. And so we just have to figure out, right? Like you can keep the coffee cup, you could keep the closet full of stuff, but do you like the consequences it's causing for you? And we can talk about how to take action on that. But that's really what it is, right? It's like the default mode. And we think that we are like in part. Yeah. It's like we are our things. Like they're an extension of us.
Well, we are going to stay with us. We are going to bring you some very actionable strategies. So no problem too big or too small. I wanted to ask you, Sarah, from all of those people that you have met and worked with and been sent photos of, has there been a space we just thought, this is unworkable, unlivable, I'm walking away?
Well, honestly, no, because I think if someone is coming and they're looking for help, then there's always hope, right? And it's just a question of how much work is it, right? And I think that's one of the superpowers of our community. One of our values is empowering community, and that we don't judge. And if someone is ready to clean up, we're there for them, and we will help them. Maybe it takes a little bit longer, but it's at the end of the day, it's just stuff, right? It's all just stuff, whether it's like neatly organized stuff behind closed doors and, we feel bad about that, or maybe it's a whole house that just needs to be emptied out.
You're very kind.
It's not
because I would judge. I wanted to ask you a question that's come in on the text line. This is from Nirel saying, I love this. Which gadgets or appliances are the most discarded? So when you're working with homes, have you noticed any patterns? You're like, oh, it's another bread maker. Oh, shocker. No one's used the ice cream maker in 20 years. What are you seeing in kitchens in particular?
Absolutely. That was what I was going to say. Like anything that does one job. If you pull this out once a year, it's probably like taking up so much space, unless you have like unlimited space. But if your kitchen is on the smaller side, a bread maker or an ice cream maker that you're not using regularly is consuming like lots of valuable real estate. We talk about space in terms of like, this is valuable real estate, right? If you were going to pay for this, would you want to put your ice cream maker there that you never dust off, right? So anything like that, especially like the bigger ones, right? I mean, if you've got kitchen gadgets, they're probably not taking up a ton of room. Mm-hmm. But the bigger stuff, the Instapot, if you love it, amazing. But if you haven't gotten out of the box because you're scared to use it, then maybe you want to let it go.
That's me. I sold it.
There you go.
We've had a message here, and we are going to talk about some strategies after 1:30. But for now, let's stay with the psychology of it, because we've had a message from a husband that's signing off, drowning under junk from Dubai. So Anonymous here saying, my wife, whom I love beyond measure, so take the following in light of this, but she's Swiss and tighter than 2 coats of paint. She hoards everything, from paper clips to well past due date friends. Our house, while tidy and homely, is full of what I can only describe as a word I can't say. She can't find dresses because of all of her dresses. I've tried to get her to declutter by doing it myself, but it has no effect. What do you suggest? Now, there's 2 things I want to ask you here. One is the strategy that you would kind of, impart, but also how do you deal with when the couple are on different pages when it comes to their comfort level around stuff, Sarah?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, everyone's going to have different priorities, right? And we don't always agree on them. And that makes it challenging. I love that he tried to help, right? I think that's beautiful. That's a loving, beautiful thing. In this situation, it does sound like a little bit more extreme. This might be something that you want to involve a psychiatrist or a psychologist in, if it's more of a compulsive thing and it's really interfering with like daily life, then, you may want to do that. We have a lot of people that work with our community, and then in tandem, they also work with a therapist or a psychologist. So like, it definitely can work that way.
If it's not that extreme, if it's not like, those people who look like they're living in like, a hamster bed, they've got to burrow through all the stuff. It says it's tidy and homely, but the functionality of the home isn't there because of the volume of stuff. How can you talk to a partner that's saying, this is not working for me or you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's a conversation. It's an honest conversation saying, I love you. And like, this doesn't work for me. And what can we do here? Right. I think sometimes people need to,
I think it's easy for us to be like, well, this is what they need, right? She really needs it this way, but you also need, right? Mm-hmm. We all have needs, and it's okay to, to insist on what you need. Now, the solution might be creative. I don't know, right? But, we don't have to just defer because the other person is so insistent on what they want. It's really a conversation, and there's no magic bullet there. But a lot of times if the person feels supported, right? So let's say in this case, if the wife feels supported, and she realizes, okay, like my husband's really having a hard time with this, then maybe she's willing to, take some baby steps.
That's what I was going to say. And then we'll talk about those kind of baby steps and how those can add up soon. But if it's not a case of, right, this is the weekend where we're throwing out your dresses, in terms of the approach must be a bit of a game changer. And I would imagine with children as well, in terms of, should we involve the kids, which is also a question I want to ask you. I've had a message from Mira saying, oh no, I've just bought an ice cream machine. Oh no. Please
well, use that ice cream maker. Yeah.
Prove us wrong. You know where our studio is if you want to drop off some. So I'm happy to support you in your ice cream making endeavors, Miras. No name on this one saying, my husband loves keeping old cables, useless ones. I don't know how to convince him to discard the useless items. Okay, let's talk common pain points, because I have a few boxes of chargers and cables for items that may no longer be in my life. What are the common pain points that, again, you see time and time again?
Yeah, that's a big one, isn't it? It's just, it's the cables. It's the, I might need it. I don't even know what this is, but I might need it. And I'm always like, you know what? Even if you did need it, you probably couldn't find it.
Fair.
So let's just try it out. Dump that box of cables. I promise you, the world will not come to an end. It won't.
Okay.
And you will feel lighter and like, wow, this is actually pretty good, right? Because you just have to get over that hump. So things like that. Another thing that people really like to keep is the boxes from, let's say, their vacuum or their TV, right? We might need that. If we're going to move, we need the TV box, but they haven't moved in 20 years, or they don't even have that TV anymore.
I have all of my mobile phone boxes. Like whenever I bought a new iPhone, I'm like, oh, I should keep that for absolutely no reason. This is now becoming like a shame spiral as I think about how many pairs of shoes I have and the boxes of cables in my home. So let's talk about Overwhelm, the baby steps, Sarah, because I think that's where it can all begin. The idea of having a week free and unlimited time and resources to declutter your home is frankly unrealistic. But we might be able to find 10 minutes, half an hour over the weekend. Where can we start?
Oh my goodness. Yes. I mean, that's the thing, right? Everyone thinks, I got to do it all. I got to get this all done. And then they freeze. So we recommend the exact opposite. In fact, we teach an idea called the 10-minute miracle. So in 10 minutes, can you just do one little thing? Can you do one little drawer? Can you go find that box of cables and throw it out?
I was about to say, I can throw those cables in 2 minutes, Sarah. That's not a problem.
You could do it, right? You could do it and you'd feel great when you're done. So what can you do in 10 minutes? And then you can stack them. So if you do have, a free afternoon, maybe you do 3 10-minute miracles. Maybe you keep going for a couple hours, but you allow yourself to stop, because I think when we think we have to do it all, then we don't know what we're doing, and we're having a hard time, and then we don't want to start, right? So we have to tiptoe into this process, and then we can go big later if we need to.
What are some of your favorite areas of the home to declutter? Are you sometimes like, I love a wardrobe, or show me the kitchen cabinets?
Yes, the kitchen for sure. Because when we make our kitchens easier to work with, when we make them more enjoyable, we clear them out, there are just a million benefits. You're going to be cooking at home more. You're going to be wasting less money on food. You're going to not be eating out as much. You're going to be enjoying this with your family. So it is a huge payoff in a very small amount of time. So we love the kitchen. Bathroom, also a great choice because it's limited, right? It's going to be smaller. You probably got lotions and, makeup that nobody wants and hasn't touched. So that stuff is a little easier to let go of. So that's a good choice too.
What about your least favorite areas to declutter? You're like, oh,
Ooh.
go on. What do you kind of dread? Or what we noticed with clients where they're like, oh, we haven't looked at that since we moved house, which I think is a really common one. Have a nice declutter when you move home every 2 decades.
Right. So yeah, a couple things. People will have what they call mystery boxes. So they haven't opened the box. They don't even know what's in there. And, they're filled with dread. So those are some of the harder ones. Also, photos are really, really tough. A lot of people, at least, older people will have printed photos and they may have boxes and boxes. And the thought of sorting through that, making order is very overwhelming. We actually have a whole course dealing with photos because it is such a hot pain point for people.
This doesn't sound really morbid, and I'm really sorry, but I think we kind of need to say the unsayable, which is, although we are in an expat community here, and there might not be people living, close to or with their older relatives, I go back home and look at my parents' house and go, oh, thank goodness you're on top of this, because my granny's homes were a nightmare. After they passed away, not only were we dealing with the grief and honestly the paperwork and the probate and the it's this the boxes of buttons that hadn't been touched in 40 years and the clothes from however long. So we're kind of doing ourselves a kindness, I guess, when we start to streamline our belongings, but we're also thinking about the future too. Is that really dark?
Yeah.
I'm really sorry.
Oh my goodness, it's so true, isn't it? Because, none of us are getting out of here alive. So someone's going to have to go through your stuff, right? It's not a secret, like everyone. So yeah, absolutely. If we take care of our homes and, and get rid of things that are not serving us, then that's just a gift. When I pass away, I don't want my kids like messing around and having to sort through things. I want them to be able to like grieve and miss me and spend time for that.
Sarah, I need to ask you about the kids. You've got 4 boys. How your home is not like the set of the new Twisters movie is beyond admirable to me. We've had a question here. This is from S saying, decluttering by stealth. Okay. She's saying, I'm so sick of the kids' toys and clutter, but whenever I try to declutter, my husband starts saying, I bought that, as if he's got some emotional attachment. Is it okay to declutter quietly when they're out?
I think you have to know your kids, right? So I'm not going to say no. Some parents decide that is the right thing to do. But I think when we do that, then our kids don't learn how to do it. And then we're just setting them up for failure later on. So I do think I like to model. So, when I'm going through my things, I'll say, oh, look, I'm not going to wear this anymore. I think I'm going to put it in the donation box. Let's take it to the thrift store. Someone else will be glad to have it. Right. So we're just telling them this is a normal part of being, of everyday life, that we let things go. Things come in, things go out, right? And so we're showing them that. And then you can do it with them. Again, little 10-minute miracle. Let's go find some toys that, you're too big for. You're so big now. I wonder if there's something that, you don't play with anymore that someone else would love to have, right? And we're modeling that and we're stepping them through, and we're not taking their stuff because they're just going to hold on tighter, but we're having that conversation. Now the husband is a different issue, right? Maybe he's attached. So maybe he needs to see it in process before he's comfortable.
I agree. Okay. Which brings me to Lego. Jojo says, I have 2 huge boxes of random Lego. They don't have the boxes or the instructions it came with. I'm doing a big declutter over the summer. Any ideas? So, I mean, I'm a Lego lover. So I would just say, Jojo, just drop off at the studio. I'd be delighted. But when it comes to what you do with these things, I think for many people, because I donate clothes to Thrift for Good, but I'll often drive around for 3 weeks with the clothes in the back of the car. But I know where they're going. I think for some people, it's like, okay, I'm going to let's use toys. I'm going to declutter. But then what do I do with the stuff? It's like the next pain point, the next challenge. So for Legos in particular, any recommendations there? We're we looking donate, sell? Have you got a preferred method?
Yeah. It really depends on how much work you want to do, right? You could probably sell them. You could probably separate them up and then sell them that way and get more, but do you want to, right? Or do you just want to be rid of them? Do you just want to find, the neighbor next door who has some little kids who would love that box of random Legos, right? You need to decide, like, how much time do I want to invest in, letting this go and finding the right place for it. I tend to err on the side of, like, I want one place to get rid of everything if possible, right? So, most of my stuff just goes to this one thrift store and I let them figure it out. But it's going to depend. Again, some people really like to find someone who wants their item, or, they have their favorite women's shelter, or preschool that is like thrilled to get that. And so they are spending that time. But again, it's really how much time do you want to spend, again, driving around with it in your car.
Right. Well, can we talk a little bit about different methods? Because one that's been in the press recently is the boundary method of decluttering. Can you explain what it is and who might find it useful, I guess?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. The boundary method really just means, like, making sure that you are fitting your things into the space that you have, right? So if you have one bookcase in your house, you've got books on the bookcase and you don't let them, spill over onto the floor and, in all the nooks and crannies, right? So it's really just like respecting the, the space that you have available. We teach this. We have a challenge that we run, and this is one of the things that we teach in our challenge, and we call it constraint, right? So it's really decision making ahead of time. So you can apply this lots of ways. So you can say, I only have this much space for my clothes in my closet, and when the space is full, I either need to stop buying or I need to let some things go, right? And so it just makes it really clear. Mm-hmm. We don't just keep buying and like letting things into the house without making room and, taking things out. Another really interesting way you can use this, though, is you can create, we kind of call them rules. They're not really rules because we choose them for ourselves. But maybe you decide, again, getting back to books, maybe you decide, I'm only going to keep books that are hardcover, right? So that makes it easy to let go of the paperback ones. Or maybe you decide, I'm only keeping books that, that I think I'm going to read again. So if it's like a one and done, that's a great opportunity to let that book go. And you make the decision once, and then you just keep applying it over and over and over again. And now we're not agonizing over every single item.
We've had a message here from Annabelle saying, what about the one in, one out approach? So I'm guessing this is, so I have a Breton top problem, Sarah. Like, it's embarrassing. I've got about 14 different navy and cream stripe tops. And to my mind, they're all very different. Some have got a puff sleeve, some have got a slash neck, some are boxier, some are white on navy, some are navy on white. Like, it's very distinct and they all have their own purpose and place in my heart. She said, master of self-justification. Should I, next time I see a Breton top, I'm like, oh, this is the missing piece to my heart. Do I need to get rid of an old one? One in, one out.
I would say no, because if you want to buy, if you want to buy that top, I am all in. But maybe you let something else go. Maybe there's a pair of pants that you haven't worn, right? So, like, we don't have to deny ourselves. We just have to take a look at what is actually in our home. Because when we spend the whole time feeling bad about things, now we're actually going to want to shop more. Yeah. So we really just want to, like, notice and take inventory. What's in the closet that you don't actually like? I promise you, there's stuff there.
I saw a hack. It was probably around New Year's. I think someone was talking about, this is what I'm doing January 1st, and it was putting your clothes all on hangers facing the same way. And every time when you wore it, you could you could put it back on the other way, so you could see it had been worn. And then by the end of the year, any item that was untouched was gone. Any other tips and tricks, anything you've seen on social that's resonated with your community that we could share with everyone now?
Yeah, we love the 2020 rule. So if you're on the fence about something, you're thinking, oh, I think I could let this go, but maybe I'll need it. I don't know, right? If you can replace that item in 20 minutes for $20 or less, right? And you can make it the 30-30 rule, whatever works best for you, then you can let that go. Right? Because, like, what's the worst that happens? You might need to buy it again. Like, this is not a catastrophe, right? It's okay if you let something go and then maybe you need it again later, right? Because you probably are going to let 100 things go and maybe 2 of them you actually end up needing later. But the other ones, you made all that space in your home, and you may offer that up to someone else. Okay. So the 20/20 rule could be really helpful.
Last question from Ali, which is, I possibly have too much stuff. I've had a declutter, but I need to store things better. Looking for some inspiration. Any storage essentials from Sarah? Good question. Yes. What do you like?
Love that question. Yeah, we teach how to use a container properly, because there's actually a right way and a wrong way to do it. A lot of people just dump things into a box and call it a day, and then they wonder why they're not organized, right? So we have a whole process for going through this, but really some quick tips. Make sure that the items that you're putting in the box are the right size, right? So if you have a large box, you probably want larger items. If you have a small box, maybe smaller items, right? Do you like your containers to be see-through so you can see what's inside, or maybe not? Do you want to put a label on it, right? So it's not like a specific product that we like, but we like to take a little bit more care when we're choosing what we use to store our things in, because it can make it so much easier to find them later and, just to stay organized. That's what we're going for here, right? We want to be organized. We want to be able to find things.
We've run out of time. We haven't run out of questions. So I'm going to send your website to anyone that wants to send me the word sort. That makes sense. But you teach people how to do this. It's not necessarily a kind of consulting, and obviously you're in New York, so you couldn't come and help us in Dubai as much as we want you. But people can sign up for different courses and workshops and access to information. So if you want to send me the word sort or the home emoji, Sarah, with your permission, I'll send everyone the website for the declutteringclub.com. Would that be okay?
That would be amazing. Yes.
You've got
Thank
a podcast.
You so much.
If people want to get really into, a deeper dive on that, that's all on there. Sarah, thank you so much for your time. I am going tonight, instead of doing a mindless scroll on the sofa, I'm going to tackle a few hotspots in the house. So your work here is done.
There you go.
Sarah Mueller
there you go.
from the Decluttering Club. Really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
That's all we have for you today. If you enjoyed this podcast, please leave us a review. It would really help us to get the word out. And if you'd like to continue your decluttering journey with us, find us on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube at Decluttering Club, or on our website at thedeclutteringclub.com.